Welcome. We're so glad that you could join us. The program you're watching is Youth Issues, a program in which we discuss deeply relevant, significant topics. My name is Gert, and with me here in the studio today are Christian and Greg. The subject we're discussing is symbols and messages, and the core question we're asking is, what is the message that you are sending? What is the message that I am sending to the rest of the world? Before we get to that discussion though, here are a few thoughts that kind of link with the topic in the minds of some of our friends.
Think of text message emojis.
That is, yeah, or like the music symbols that goes.
No.
Okay, okay, never mind. You can cut that from the video if you like. I don't know.
I think I find symbols for like young people, especially because we're just so connected to our phones and stuff. It's a way of conveying your emotion by just using something basic that can be generalized to everything.
And I think a symbol can like portray so many like.
It can, but I find them
so
really.
Much.
I think they're impersonal.
No, it's because every time I see you, when we see each other, I always go like this, don't we? Like we just put our, you know, like peace signs out, gang signs out, and it just means nothing. But in a way, it is a way of communication, really, isn't it?
Okay.
It's a way of avoiding the awkwardness.
Instead of words, symbols can be better because they can be made personal as well, like a certain group of people. It's like talking about identity as well. It can bring people together. Yeah.
Messages and symbols, and what kind of a message are you sending? It's strange that in this world we actually send most of the messages not through the words that we're using, but in so many other ways. One of the ways probably is the way we look. Now, we could have a bit of a test here. What is the message without any words? What is the message that the three of us are sending to the world? Greg?
Well, I'm actually in my school uniform. As you can see, I've got these 3 badges here.
Very fancy.
School council, prefect, and house captain. And obviously a tie. I don't know, trying to be a little bit sophisticated, mature. Yeah, we've got this sort of identity. This is our school.
Yeah, it screams like politician in the making or something.
I don't know. It seems like, you know, the suits are sort of, you know, worn, you know, in business, in politics and stuff like that. And I don't know, it seems that when a politician isn't wearing a suit or something like that, they're sort of perceived as maybe a little bit more, I don't know, socialist, liberal. It seems that the norm is the suit. And, you know, trying to stay sophisticated in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Straightforward, informed, competent.
Yes.
Right.
It seems that way.
Now, Christian, what does that, or what are you?
I'm just a normal man on the street, you know.
Right.
Just nothing more, nothing less, I think. Just one of the crowd.
Was that intentional?
No, it wasn't intentional, but when the question is asked, you really see that being one of the crowd, it can be good and it can be bad. If there is a need for you to show something different, then I think it's important to dress up in a certain way. But when you're just you, why not? Why can't you just hide in the crowd if that's what you like?
Yeah, I mean, being apart and not standing out is very necessary and very welcome occasionally. So, gentlemen, what do you make of me?
Well,
let's
straightforward
be civil
question
here. Yes. Let's see if I was successful.
I think you like nature. Member of Greenpeace, maybe.
Member of Greenpeace, okay.
See, I was thinking a little bit more, you know, you've got some sort of scarf going on and a bit of a cardigan. Are you a little bit cold? Is it cold outside?
Yeah, okay, that could also be the message, yes. It's terribly freezing. But
you're not one of the crowd. Like, I don't think you put an effort into be one of the crowd, because I think the way you dress kind of, it's a little distinct.
It's a little distinct. That's a beautiful way of putting that. I don't even know what I was trying to say, but point being that I was trying to actually put on something that would be something to interpret, you know.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was, I'm a living task for you. In the studio.
Absolutely.
But it's actually weird that you had a bit of a difficulty trying to figure me out when it comes to the clothes. But I have a suspicious feeling that if a person was to approach us right now and they would have a certain question on their mind, they would probably kind of intuitively pose different questions, or with different questions turn to different people around this table. So, I mean, I know that I'm really sorry, but if I really wanted to ask about finances at the moment, I would not turn to you. I would probably ask something from Greg.
Darn it.
Because he kind of, I mean, this is what you speak.
Yeah.
This is what I see.
I agree. It seems with, you know, with certain sectors of society, there's an image, and you know, you'll get, as you know, as we said, sort of the politicians, the businessmen, sort of dressing up in suits, whereas the artist or something will find something unique, as we've seen. You know, we couldn't quite figure it out because you've sort of selected that yourself, whereas this was given to me by school policy. I didn't decide to wear this. I've been, you know, sort of essentially forced into this, and as a result, I've been given that identity. I've been given the identity that, you know, I'm a student, I'm sort of like obeying the school rules, you know, I'm trying to put on this, this, you know, image that, you know, I'm...
Of control,
yeah, sort of, you know, that you are someone of, I don't know, like, respectability. Yeah, and, yeah, that's sort of where the lines of, you know, images come from what I'm wearing.
But the idea of, I mean, while we're approaching the topic of messages and symbols from not the verbal point, but we're actually talking about the looks, it seems that we are actually sending out messages all the time. Whatever we do or whatever we don't do actually means so much more than whatever we do or we don't do. So these selections speak more than just the thing that we are choosing. So it's not just the jackets, it's not just the suit. It, for some reason, has all this baggage of meaning that it carries with it. Yeah. Now, and it's not anything that is new here. I mean, we're not discovering or exploring uncharted territories here. This is something that people have discovered, well, long ago, technically, that the way you look actually speaks a lot.
Yeah, and exactly that line, sort of speaking a lot, the way we interpret it. It's interesting to note that in 1960, the first televised presidential debate in America was found in polls afterwards that John F. Kennedy won it against Nixon. Why? Because his face was a little bit more tanned, his suit didn't blend in with the background, and for the viewers at home, they, you know, it clicked with them. You know, they understood, they sort of recognized him as a more authoritative figure, someone that they could trust. And so when we come back to these sort of the lines of images and so on, it's important to consider the people around us because they are the ones that will be interpreting what we are, you know, putting out in the world.
This is a really interesting topic because it kind of means that on the one hand, the way you look is an expression of who you are, and on the other hand, you are trying to kind of predict what the people around you with whom you are going to be in communication, in contact, are going to make of you. So yeah, it's kind of a terribly difficult balancing act, actually.
Yeah.
It is a difficult balance, and I don't know if it's necessarily bad, I don't know, but what's sad in a sense is that what you wear and what you symbolize in what you wear, it places you on a specific spot on the hierarchical ladder. of society. Whereas there was a project done where they took a man dressed up in suits and all looking good, looking smart, looking like a proper businessman, and then he walked on the street and then he just collapsed, or at least pretended as if he did, and people from everywhere just ran over to him, wanted to help him, and then they found out it was a project. And then the next one was someone dressed like a homeless person. And they did exactly the same thing, and he collapsed. And to watch how people just walked past this person because the way he was dressed, just because they looked at his clothes and said, you know, he might be homeless. This is just to be expected. And how we put people in a specific box or define their value just because of what they wear or the symbols they're showing. It's a sad development of society, but it's just a matter of fact that we need to think about what signals we are sending.
Well, we have been talking about technically two sides of the coin at the moment. What are we sending and what are we reading? Or when I see a symbol, then what kind of a significance do I attribute to it? And I think that this is exactly the two sides of the coin that we are going to look deeper into in the following discussion. After the small break, we'll be coming back to talk about more symbols, not only the clothes that we wear, not only the way that we actually look, but there is so much more that we need to consider from both sides of the coin. So, we're discussing the wonderful world of symbols and messages. The wonderful world. It is a wonderful world, right? Because it enables us, it empowers us really for so much artistic freedom and so much creativity. At the same time, it doesn't always seem to be something that we can shape and change the way we want to, right?
Symbols, as you say, they're seemingly living their own life because the meaning of the symbols, to some extent, change over time. And a symbol that was accepted before are not necessarily accepted today anymore. And the message we want to send is not necessarily the message that want to be received. So, as you say, it's wonderful, but it's a very tricky world to enter because it is a completely different world.
I had an experience with this just this week. Last weekend, I actually I took a photo. I mean, I was taken a photo of by my friend. That's perfect grammar. And I was peeping through a triangular hole like this, so that only one eye was seen. And then I actually used this picture as my profile picture. So it was just wood, and then my eye in the middle, and whoosh. It couldn't have been, I mean, it wasn't by so many people, it wasn't seen just as me peeping through a triangular hole. It was like Illuminati and Freemasons and whatever the comments came, which is kind of an inevitable thing. I mean, I think it illustrates what you said so perfectly, that I can't just take a picture of my eye in a triangular hole because this symbol already means something, right? Everybody sees the dollar bill and then probably some of the Da Vinci Code and et cetera, in their heads. And no matter how much I want this picture to just be a picture of a tiny hole in my eye, it cannot, because it's turned into something else by those who see it and those who kind of attribute a meaning to that symbol. I'm not Illuminati, by the way, in case you were wondering.
But the question is really, you meant something when you sent the picture. And that's kind of the scary part of that symbolic world. You meant something just to send a picture, or a picture that you liked. but they received it as something completely different. So I think it's a shared responsibility that we're playing with here, because it's our responsibility as the sender of a symbol to evaluate, is this appropriate to send? But it's also the receiver's opportunity to, and responsibility to actually evaluate, was that what you wanted to say with a picture? So I think it's a shared responsibility that we need to take into consideration as well.
That's true. Do you have any experiences along the same lines?
With symbols? Yeah, I don't know, when I was younger, okay, so, you know, when you first get into secondary school, you want to fit in with the guys and stuff like that. So one of these sort of trends, for example, was to wear stuff. do you know like the sort of NYC caps and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sort of, you know, be popular in that, like, you basically go and buy merchandise as such to, you know, sort of fit that line. You know, at a tender age, when I'm like, you know, sort of 13, 14, I didn't quite understand the symbols that are associated with, you know, those letters and stuff like that, and think about the culture and sort of history that it has, you know, sort of back to America and stuff like that. And, you know, as a kid, you don't really consider that. And then it's sort of, you know, with that in mind, at this age, you sort of look at fashion, and I don't know, some of the T-shirts that guys and girls wear with crosses on and stuff like that. You know, nowadays, you just sort of like look at that T-shirt and you'd be like, okay, you know, it's got like a black and white theme, you know, I think I could wear that with these jeans and these shoes. But you won't really take into account that that is a cross and the meaning that it has.
Right.
And then, you know, that's when you can bring in, you know, the religious questions, you know, Jesus Christ and so on. And it's like, if you're an atheist and you're wearing that shirt, you know, is that really sort of what you want to be, you know, sort of throwing out there? But I mean, that's the thing that we've got to take consideration of. That these sort of symbols that we wear and the messages that come out of them as a result.
It's like you're saying one thing and your T-shirt is screaming something in total contradiction. Yeah. And as you said, that there's this kind of responsibility that to a degree that we have to, we as the people who design or kind of try to be in control of the messages that we are sending, need to be aware of that. On the other hand, there are so many symbols whose meaning is in transition, in constant transition. And as you said, yeah, you would rather think about black and white instead of the exact symbol that you are wearing. And depending on what topic is relevant, then some symbols are kind of highlighted more and discussed more. Yeah, and some symbols are just hijacked and you can never go back to the original meaning anymore. Now, we've been talking about visual symbols. Can you point out any other categories in which we're using symbols in our lives? So a lot of it has been talked around the clothes that we wear, the way that we look.
You have symbols of, as you said, you have the clothes and then you have the symbols that we have just agreed on. That's the visual symbol, for example, for the church or for Islam. But you also have symbols of how you carry yourself, how you dress. You even have symbols of the way you speak will put you in a certain group. Even a handshake can tell more about you than maybe the way you dress.
Which is true. I mean, I have a suspicious feeling that the same politicians, probably Kennedy and Nixon, practiced the handshake so that it would be not again referring to Freemasons or anything, but you know, a special handshake. But what I mean is that when you actually shake somebody's hand, you need it to be sufficiently firm to know that the person is confident and yet not strong enough to be violent and aggressive, right? So there's this, you know, practicing on, I don't know, like clay models.
Yeah, and you see, like, especially groups of young guys very often, they kind of, they do all these, in my head, it just looks odd because, you know, I'm more of the traditional hi, just a handshake and then over. But they have like a handshake and then fist and then clap, and then you're just sitting there and thinking, what is that? But it's identifying the group they're in. It's their little private symbol for their little group. And I think that's kind of cool in a way that, yeah, but the problem is you never know how to handshake anyone anymore.
Yeah. I mean, in the good old days, way back when people were just in their village and that was all they saw for most of their lives, then we didn't have these problems, right? But today, here we are sitting, we're kind of like a really mixed group here, because I'm an Estonian living in England, married to a Serbian. Some of you might already know that if you've seen our previous programs. You are Norwegian.
Yeah.
You are...
Well, I was born here, but my dad's Ukrainian and my mum is Russian. So you probably didn't notice that because I don't really have an accent.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. That's...
So technically the point is that we are illustrating a situation in which different cultures with kind of like a different language of symbols come together, and there you have the confusion. Like, how many times do you kiss somebody on the cheek? And
do you have
is it
to?
too many?
Do you really have
do you have to? Yeah. So all of these things actually speak a certain thing, and the fact that you know how to do that or how to shake somebody's hand, even if it goes on for 2 minutes, actually, for everyone else, it says, okay, these two know each other. They're the same. They're kind of like, you know, they belong together.
I also think it's very important to know your symbol, to know the symbol that you're using and the power of it. For example, you can use, as you addressed, people use the cross without really thinking, what does that really portray? In the beginning, 2,000 years ago, no one would wear it, because for them, it would be as for us to wear an electric chair around our neck. No one would do that. Whereas using the cross today, traditionally, is portraying a religion, it's portraying Christianity. And in Norway, they had a debate half a year ago or something, where a woman at national TV, she wore a necklace with a tiny little cross on it. And that turned into a huge debate because some people felt that she was pushing the people of other denominations, of non-religion, just pushing them away with the little cross that she had. She didn't. She just saw it as a piece of jewelry.
Yeah.
But the power that people put on that specific symbol was enough to make a huge debate.
Well, there you go. It seems that we don't only create symbols and we don't only use symbols, but the symbols have a life of their own. In just a couple of seconds, we're going to look at how to balance our way through this maze of complications. The world of symbols. Last time I said that it was a wonderful one. Now I say that it's a complicated one. You two seem to have actually managed fairly well on this complicated landscape. The example that you brought was kind of like from your childhood or something. And I mean, I just brought it from last week, so apparently I'm considerably less competent in managing the field. So what would be your tips to people when it comes to what kind of messages they are sending and receiving?
I would say just be cautious what you do. And as I said earlier, be cautious about the power of your symbol. Try to think through what you wear and think through what you say and how you address people. And I think that's the most important thing you do.
Yeah, and as you say, as you mentioned, sort of say, communication is so powerful, and obviously we communicate through our, our clothes, our actions, but more importantly, our words. And it's interesting to note that how you can say one sentence and another person can interpret it differently. How do you balance that sort of, or find that middle ground where both parties understand? And that's where I'd probably advise you really do think through what you're about to say. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I have a bit of trouble with that because I like to sort of speak my mind, but you've got to take into consideration what the other person's sort of history is, or the way their culture is. Like I said, my parents are not from here, so to sort of balance that communication skill with them is completely different with students from my school, because the majority of them are English. And for example, their humour is sarcastic, whereas my dad doesn't quite understand sarcasm. But that happens with throughout every walk of life. It might not necessarily be down to your culture. It could just be down to the person.
Right.
So that's something that we need to really take into consideration.
Right.
I think a very good example of language symbols is, when people call each other names, and calling someone Judas would immediately think traitor, you're a bad person, you're an evil person, and everyone have this connotation to that verbal symbol used. So it just shows, again, the power of the symbol that you choose to use at certain points.
Right. So technically, the two things that I just heard was, first of all, you said, be careful about the symbols you're using, and you also kind of edgewise said that the other person might not even mean it the same way that you understand it. So the two sides, again, that we started with, we need to kind of consider what we are sending out, and at the same time always remember that maybe this is before really hitting the roof and going completely, getting furious at what somebody said, or just discarding them as somebody you don't want to really have anything to do with in the future. We could just give them a bit of a chance. Maybe they didn't mean it the way that we interpreted the message.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that symbols in communication, just the basic principle of communication, you have a sender of a message and you have a receiver. And no matter how you approach people with just on everyday basis or with symbols, just always keep in mind that the sender and the receiver are not always on the same page. And if we all keep that in mind and keep that as a balance, we can reduce the risk to a minimum, I think.
Yeah.
Right. It seems that there are some fairly good tips to take away from this discussion. Also, just in case you're not entirely sure what a symbol actually is, I'm going to give you the easiest definition so that when you meet one, you recognize them. Symbols are anything that signifies something they themselves are not. Think about that a little. And once you've done that, then we'd be so glad to hear about your experiences, your thoughts. If you disagree or agree with us, just let us know. Use the email address info@lifeconnect.info. Thank you for staying with us.